Hi, I'm Pat Keegan and welcome back to the DIY Home Build channel. The first thing I have going on in this cavity up here is I'm going to be installing a false front that tips out. The second cavity down here is just going to be your standard double door install. I'll mention again, like I did in the Lazy Susan video, that I always have these cups pre-drilled at the manufacturer where I order my doors. The alternative is you can spend some money, if you're going to be doing a lot of these types of doors maybe, you can spend some money and you can buy a specialized jig and a specialized bit and some other tools to be able to locate these things, to be able to drill them yourself. If you're a novice cabinet maker and you're not going to be doing this other than in your own kitchen, it's probably not worth the purchase, even though the tools aren't that expensive compared to power tools. It's just not necessarily worth it. So we always have them pre-drilled because time is money, and even though we can do it ourselves here, we just choose not to when we're not making the doors. The third cavity here is a little bit more complicated because we've had a design change, which is the first thing I'll talk about, and then we want to show you an alternate method to install your drawer slides without using the rear mounting angle brackets, which I'll talk about second. The first, the design change. Initially we were going to install 3 separate drawer boxes, and then we were going to have a door that was hinged on the left side, and that door would open up and you'd be able to pull out the drawer boxes individually. The new design change calls for a pull-out shelving system where the door is no longer hinged on the left side here, but rather fastened to the pull-out unit such that you can pull it out from the top and the whole unit slides out at the same time. Unfortunately, we had already ordered the drawer boxes to do it the way the initial design called for. And so after some discussion and debate, we decided to try to, as economically as possible, utilize what we had to fashion the same type of system that was called for in this design change. So what does that mean? Typically when a pull-out unit is constructed, it's made like a sandwich where you have a panel on the back, a panel on the front, and then whatever kind of shelving units you want, whether it be a knife block or a spice rack or a cookie sheet holder, whatever, is kind of sandwiched between those two panels. That single then unit is mounted to a single pair of drawer slides, usually at the bottom of the cavity, and then you attach the door and the whole thing pulls out separately. It's more economical to do it that way because you save the cost of 2 additional pairs of drawer slides. But as I mentioned, we already have these resources available to us. We've already got the second and third pair of drawer slides, and we've already got the drawers that we have. So what we're going to do is we're just going to mount the drawer boxes as we had planned initially. 3 separate drawer boxes with 3 separate pairs of drawer slides, and then we're going to mount the door on top of that, screwing in from the inside of the drawer box into the back of the door. Very similar to how you install drawer fronts that we showed you how to do in the leftmost base kitchen cabinet in our series. The way I'm going to install the drawer slides on this side is very similar to the way I showed you in the Open Shop Friday mobile shop cart video that we posted some time ago. And the way, if you want to go see how those are installed, go back and watch that video, because I'm attaching, in that video I show you how to attach the drawer slides directly to the side panel, which when I constructed this cabinet I made flush with this side of the face frame for just that reason. And so I'm not going to show you that install. I've already cut my spacer block, so I've got an inch and 3/4 spacer block. Then I'm going to put on the slide, screw the slide in. Then I got a 9.5 inch spacer block, and then I'm going to put another slide in, and then I'm going to use the same spacer block and put the last slide in on that side, just like I did in the other video. The other side is a little bit different. This is where we're going to show you a different technique to installing drawer slides so that you don't need the rear mounting angle bracket. Now again, this is not the typical way I would install drawer slides. I almost always use the rear mounting bracket. One is, again, just like drilling the cup holes, it's very cheap. They're like $1.50 or $2 per slide. So I could spend $6 and literally I can have these things in about 3 minutes of time. Or I can use an alternate method, which is going to call for a little bit more material and a little bit more time. So really, it's just a trade-off of what's a little bit easier, what you're comfortable with, and what you feel like doing. So that's the trade-off. In my cabinets, my face frames are almost always 2 inches thick, and my outside panel that's going to be visible is always flush with this, or almost always flush with this edge. And therefore, since my cabinets are 2 inches here and I got a 3/4 inch panel, my face frame rather, I'm going to have 1 1/4 inches of space behind this face frame. So I've got to effectively bring out that panel so that it's flush with the face frame. And I'm going to need 3 points of contact. I'm going to need, or I typically, if I'm doing it this way, I like to put 3 points of contact in. So I'm still going to screw the front of this slide into the face frame. So then I'm going to need two spacer blocks, as it were, that are 1 1/4 inches thick. So there's 2 reasons I abandoned this method largely in our practices here in the shop. The first one is coming up with 1 1/4 inch thick material is not that easy. Now I've got more work to do to cut 2 different thicknesses of lumber, sandwich them together, or I can go out and try to buy 6/4 material. But again, that gets expensive. It's more additional costs. It's more lumber, that you have to use in the system. And if you're not thinking about that beforehand, the tendency is to put your cabinets together and go, oh, I want to put the drawer slides. I don't want to use those corner brackets. I want to use these spacer blocks because that's really cool. Well, now that the cabinet is assembled, I'm going to have to try to work in a very tight spot. Using the rear corner or the rear angle mounting brackets, it's an easy thing to just reach all the way back and screw them in that way. However, when I'm installing these things on the side after the cabinet is put together, it's much tighter to get in here with a screw and everything, and it's going to have to be done. I'm going to have to drill all my holes on an angle. So, for those reasons, among a couple of others, we largely have abandoned this practice for making cabinets, although it's a good practice. There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to have a little bit of forethought. Ideally, you're going to want to put these spacer blocks, attach them to the side before the cabinet's put together. So just keep that in mind if you're going to choose this method to do this when you build your cabinets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install these spacer blocks first. I've already cut them. I have 1/2 inch material and 3/4 inch material in the shop. I'm going to sandwich them together and screw them to the inside of the cabinet. It's always good to have an arsenal of tools at your disposal. It's good to know this technique, even though we largely don't use it anymore. But that's okay. It's not to say I wouldn't never use it again. It's definitely a good technique. It just takes a little bit more. Plus, if you're not using 2 inch face frames, maybe it's very easy. Maybe you can get away if it's only 1.5 inches. If you're only using 1.5 inch face frame, then it's only one piece of 3/4 inch. And if you have a compressor with a nail gun, maybe it's just tap tap and in you go, and it's faster for you. So again, it just depends on what other methods you're using and everything. I'm going to start by basically taking the 3/4 inch piece of spacer block that I have, and I'm just going to drill like 6 holes in it or something like that. 2 at the top, 2 toward the bottom, and 2 in the middle. You don't need a lot, to hold it into place. But I'm going to drill these holes a little bit deeper than flush. I've just got a countersink bit basically that I'm using, and so I've got a piece of scrap block set up here so that I can not go through and mar the table, and I'll just hold it and drill 6 holes in each of the 3/4 pieces. Now that I have the 3/4 inch pieces drilled, I'm going to repeat that same procedure for the 1/2 inch pieces, but instead of I want to make sure that I'm slightly offset from the screws I drilled, since this is going to be placed directly on top of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the 3/4 inch piece first, and then I'm going to attach the 1/2 inch piece on top of it. But in order for me to attach it, I kind of need to know where the screw holes here are going to be located, and I basically just want to put them about in the center. So if I take the drawer slide that I have, I know that I'll try to show you here. I know that the first screw here is going to go right toward the front in where the face frame is. The second screw is going to be right here in the middle, and the third one will be here toward the end. So knowing that it's in the front, I'm just going to take a quick measurement and basically say from the front of the slide to the center screw is about 10 inches, and to the last screw it's about 19. So I'm going to basically just insert one of these pieces of plywood spacer and just try to center it around, 10 inches or so from the front of the cabinet. This doesn't have to be like, rocket science, but I do want it level, so it's about 7 1/4 and 7 1/4, so that it is plumb with respect to the side of the cabinet. And then the other one is 19 inches, and since these things are 4 inches wide, 19 inches from the front of the cabinet means that it's going to be 17 inches to the front of the board. So let's just try to get that at 17, which it is, and it is. Now, fortunately for me, this screw gun that I have is actually small enough to get the screws in at a straight angle, so I didn't have to drill at an angle. But if you have a screw gun that's larger, or you can't get in there and you made the unfortunate mistake of being so excited that you put your cabinets together before you had a chance to install these types of spacer blocks, then rest assured you can basically just go in on a 45-degree angle. Make sure that the screw, whether you're in on a 45 or whether you're in straight at a 90, make sure that the screw is going to be countersunk just a little bit below the surface so that the other board doesn't interfere with it or interfere with the hinge. Okay, now that I've got the two spacer blocks positioned and installed correctly, effectively those spacer blocks now make the face frame here flush with the spacer block so that I can install the slide easily. So while the cabinet is sitting here, I'm just going to use the spacer blocks that I had, and you've seen me do this before on the Open Shop Friday cart video, so I'm going to very quickly install these. I'm just going to set my spacer block here. Remember to set your slide just shy of flush, and pre-drill your holes here, and then position the screws inside here. So you'll want to put a screw into the face frame, a screw into this center spacer, and then a screw into the back spacer. Okay, now you've got the three drawer slides for this side already installed very snugly, very firmly, and all I'm going to do now is flip the cabinet back on its bottom and then repeat the same process with the spacer blocks for the other side. Okay, now that I've got all the drawer slides installed, as you can see here, and it literally took me about 5 minutes to do, including the time it takes to do these blocks. So again, it's not a slow method, it's pretty quick, but definitely something you should have in your toolbox here. So I'm going to be installing these drawer boxes using a combination of the two methods that you might have seen already. If you haven't watched the left base cabinet video where we installed the drawer boxes there, you'll want to go back and watch that, because I'm going to use the same technique for the bottom drawer as I did the bottom drawer in that one. I have a 1/2 inch piece of MDF. I'm just going to slide that MDF back there. I'm going to take the drawer box, slide it back there, pull out the two arms here on the slide, line them up so they're just shy of flush. You want them flush or even a little tiny bit back, because these are a little tiny bit back, that's why they match. And then I'm going to just drill a little pilot hole here and then put the screw in to hold it. For installing the next two drawers, I didn't want to go build a whatever that is, 5, 6, 7 inch piece of spacer block stuff. So what I'm going to do is use the same method we used in the Open Shop Friday mobile cart video, where I took these slides out. I've already got one out. I took the center piece of the slide out, and then I make a mark. If I can get another drawer, I make a mark in the center, which in these drawers, since it's 4 inches, is 2 inches up. I'll make a mark all the way along that, and I'll align these things just as I have aligned them in the previous drawer, and then I'm just going to screw them in along that line. And if you want to see that method in more detail, please watch the Open Shop Friday mobile cart video where I employ that method. So I'm going to quickly put these drawers together, and then we can start mounting the door to the drawers to make it a single pull-out system. As you can see, I have the drawer slides and the boxes actually now mounted inside the cavity. So the last thing that needs to be done is we need to attach the drawer front. Because this is a one-off situation, I'm not going to spend an incredible amount of time detailing it out for you. If you really want to know some of the details that I might miss or leave out here, then go ahead and make a comment post and I'll try to respond to it. But really what I want to say is, the two things I want to say is, it'll be almost identical to the way we attach the drawer fronts to the drawer boxes in the leftmost base cabinet video that we've previously posted. So if you want to see how I went ahead and got a little jig block and I drilled on an angle so that I hit the meat of this style rather than risking that I'm going to pierce this shallower portion of the cove of the panel, we're going to drill on an angle out. Now the way I would normally attack this is, fortunately, there's a 1/2 inch overlay of this door all the way around on the face frame. Similarly, the drawer bottom is a 1/2 inch up, a 1/2 inch down, and these slides are a 1/2 inch wide each. So if I take like a pencil or a silver Sharpie or a silver pencil, which I usually use on the darker wood, and I draw from in and down, I draw a 1 inch square concentric rectangle. And all that means is I'm going to draw a rectangle and it's going to be 1 inch in on all sides. Then all I need to do is set the bottom of the drawer on that inch mark such that they line up with the sides on the inch mark as well. I'll do the same thing for the top drawer. And then the middle drawer, I just have to make sure that I'm up the proper height here as well. Once I'm done with that, then they'll be identically, and they'll be square first of all, because they'll be square with the door, which is important. And if I have to move it, I can loosen some of the screws on the inside and move it. And then what I've decided to do here is, once I get these on and attached to the front of the drawer, let's just say this one goes here, I'm actually going to take a piece of wood and attach these things together in the back with some pocket holes that are going to be drilled in the back side of that piece of wood. Well, welcome back. First of all, a couple things have changed, namely my shirt, because today is actually the next day. I got called away yesterday and I wasn't able to finish filming. It's now early in the morning and we're kind of back. I want to talk about something because I did have some time yesterday, as you can see here, to finish attaching the door to the drawer boxes. The first thing I want to iterate is that this is not the recommended way to do this. I'm showing you this strictly and really for educational purposes only, because it's just something sometimes you have to deal with custom cabinetry, making decisions and changes on the fly, and they don't always work out. The second reason I'm sharing this with you, I guess, is because I know a lot of times in these videos, things are made to look much easier than they are, and I'm guilty of the same thing. And a lot of the cabinet making is, it's legitimately as straightforward as you see it on the film. But there are times that it's not, and I don't want to hide all those times, because even with the amount of experience that I have in building cabinets, there's still a lot of challenges and struggles that we're going to go through, particularly when clients change their mind of what they want, and you're left to kind of struggle to figure out how to make it fit. And that's okay. I enjoy those challenges. As much as I get down on them sometimes when we're doing them, they are one of the best ways to learn something and to remember that for the next time that you're going to carry this on. So as you can see here, I've got the door installed onto the drawer boxes, but what's changed is when we put all 3 drawer slides on and we started opening and closing this door, we realized that, man, that's really hard to open. So I mean, not hard, but it takes, you know, more strength than what we'd like to see to try to open these doors. So we made a modification. As I mentioned in the previous or earlier in this segment, I was going to go back and put two bridges between the upper and the middle, and another one between the middle and the lower, so that it kind of all functioned as one box. And I realized yesterday that when I did that, I did not need this second pair of hinges. So as long as there's a bridge, and it's difficult to see from there, but there's a little piece of plywood that's basically attached with some pocket holes facing the back. It attaches the back of this middle shelf to the back of the bottom shelf, and it's just a little span piece in there. I think you might be able to see it from here or whatever. But as you can see, it still gives me a little bit of difficulty when it comes to opening it all the way. So I'm not worried about that aspect of it. We can tweak these drawer slides a little bit, but it just goes to show you that, you know, sometimes even when you think you got a great idea, it doesn't always work, and you discover something new. And even though I knew it was risky to do all three drawer slides, it doesn't work out, so we make the changes. So anyway, that's effectively done there for that piece of it. The next piece that we're going to work on is the tilt out front. And as you can see here, I've got this false front. This basically just held together with spring clamps. I've got it leveled with the top of this door, which is the most important thing in terms of what your eye can see. Although I don't have this all the way pushed back so that I can get it out easily. And what the manufacturer recommends is, it's really nice. They have a little bit of a template here, and then they have the two hinges that allow for the drawer front to tilt forward. And the very easy way to do this is that we're going to take I always use a silver pencil. These are welding pencils. You can get them really, really cheap at, like, you know, whatever local big box store like Menards or Lowe's or something, I'm sure. And it marks really well, and it's very visible on wood that's already darkly stained and has polyurethane on it, and it can wipe off too when you're done. So what they recommend is essentially mounting or holding in place the false front, and then taking a pencil and basically tracing a square all the way, or in this case a rectangle, all the way around the inside along the edges of this face frame where the drawer front touches the face frame, so that you have, again, another concentric rectangle here in that. And then you basically use the templates that they have and install the hardware. So I'm going to do that now. I basically have it exactly where I want it, positioned with a 1/2 inch overlay on either side, so it's going to line up with these lower doors. And then I'm going to just take this pencil and trace the inside. Okay, and as you can see, I've got a nice pencil mark here. Well, hopefully you can see it. To me, it's very bright because it's in the silver color, you know, laid out. The next step, now that I have that done, I'm going to set that aside for just a second. And the next step is that you take a template and either a scratch awl or a punch like this. This one is a spring-loaded one, so you push it down, you can hear it pop, and it's supposed to give a little bit extra oomph to denting the wood, but usually what I find is your hand pressure enough is good enough. So basically what you do is you take your template here, you align it with the bottom, and you align it, you know, flush with the bottom, top edge of this middle rail, but the bottom of the cavity that you're going to mount it in, and then flush again to the face of the cabinet here. And I'm just going to take the scratch awl or a center punch, and I'm going to line up my holes and then just make an indentation so that I can pre-drill some holes. Now I'm going to take a 3/32 inch drill bit and make some pilot holes here, about a 1/2 inch deep. Now that I've marked and drilled the holes to receive the hinge hardware for the tilt out front, I'm going to take out this little perforated interior template. It's like a little mini template within that template, and this one is going to go on the left and right bottom corners of your false front so that you can mount the hardware to the front or the back side of the tilt out front. So I basically just line this up with the bottom left and the bottom right corner, and I repeat the same mark. I'm going to make an indentation so that the drill bit doesn't wander, and then I'm going to drill very shallow holes. You want to be careful not to pierce the front or any shallow part of the cove on this drawer front. The next step is to make some marks so that we can align where we're going to put these trays. And it's important that the tray be about 1/4 of an inch below this line. At least, I took a quick measurement of the template, and that's about what it's telling me. If you turn this template on its side, which is what they recommend, and you line the top edge against the pencil mark at the top, at what's going to be the top of the cabinet, or the top of the drawer front, this little notch here on the side and here on the side is where you're supposed to take your 2 marks. But it's about 1/4 of an inch down, so if you wanted to draw a line at 1/4 of an inch, that's fine too. But we'll do the method that they recommend, and we'll make 2 marks. And the reason we do this is so that we stay about 1/4 of an inch and we stay pretty level with respect to that line. So I'll do one on one side for the one tray, and we'll do another one further down for the second tray. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to basically take these, you're going to center them kind of where you want, but you're going to make sure that the top of the tray aligns with the marks you made so that the thing is level with respect to the top of the line and it's below that line. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a pencil here and we're just going to mark inside here where the holes are in these plastic bins to allow us to put a screw in to hold them up and mount them. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to drill a 1/2 inch hole, making sure that I am not going to pierce that skin or that shallow area of the front of this drawer. That would be disastrous. After we're done drilling the holes to receive the screws that are going to hold up these plastic trays, we're just basically going to start the screw in the hole and just about halfway or something like that, just to get them in there. You don't want to tighten them down all the way yet, because we want to install the drawer first, then slip these over. Okay, now it's time to attach the actual hinge that's going to be used to hold the door to the front of the cabinet. And they basically align one left, one right. And what you want to do is basically just line them up with the holes that you drilled to receive them. And again, just kind of attach them here. Now I like to use a screwdriver for this. I don't want to, these heads tend to have a very small Phillips head screwdriver on them, and so that means that they are subject to stripping. And the holes that you see here that we're attaching through are slotted horizontally so that you can make adjustments as you need to. So let me put these 2 on, and then we'll be ready to attach it to the cabinet. Next step, after we've attached the hinges to the back of the false front, we're going to attach the whole thing to the cabinet. And this is a little bit tricky if you have only one person, and I'm by myself today. It's Saturday morning, so essentially what I'm going to do is hold one hinge out like so, and then I'm going to use the 2 screws that align with that to put them into the side of the face frame here. I have the false front now installed, and what I want to point out a little bit is I've tightened everything up, but the screw holes on the hinges are slotted also so that you can make final adjustments. And so we're going to do that. We've got it good enough for right now. But once we get these doors on and centered and adjusted properly, then we're going to come back and just make sure that the hinges are aligned in such a way where, you know, the edges that we have here and everything height-wise lines up perfectly. So now it's time to move on to the actual door, and I'm going to go very quickly through this because it's the same exact process that I use to attach the door, the left door of the Lazy Susan pair onto the actual face frame. And so I'm going to repeat that process here. I've got the hinge cups already drilled out, as I mentioned. So all I do is I center these things, these hinges. I have my self-centering bit loaded in here, and I make sure that I'm not going to go through the surface of the door. Always, always, always keep that, you know, foremost in your mind. And I'm just going to hold them there. First of all, move this out so I can have that. All right, so then I'm going to hold them here, lined up with the edge of the door so that they're symmetrical. And I'm just going to put a hole in them. And then I'm going to repeat that process for the other one. Get away with the dust. And the reason I like these hinges, they come with the doors when I order them. The place that I order them from, you know, also has a whole selection of hinges, is because these ones have, you know, 3 screws with which to adjust the door. You can adjust the door up and down, you know, left or right, or forward and back. And so it makes it really nice to be able to adjust them. Not all of them have that in there. So, and then I'm just going to take the screws that go along with these hinges and put them in. Now, in order to mount the, and it doesn't really matter which side, so I'm going to do this side first. Now, as I've mentioned before, I want a 1/2 inch overlay. So all I do to mount these onto the door is mount them onto the face frame is very simple. So if I measure to the bottom of the actual hinge from the bottom of the door and subtract 1/2 inch, and that's going to be the size of my spacer block. So it's 2.5 inches to the bottom of the door, so I need a 2-inch spacer block in order to mount this properly. And I'm going to do that now. Kind of a large spacer block, but that's okay. I'm just going to set that back there just like I did on the Lazy Susan. And then what I'm going to do is set the door here so that the hinge is resting right there on the edge. And then I'm just going to take this hole punch. I think last time I just made a mark, but as long as I'm sitting here and the door is pretty light, I'm just going to take my scratch awl or a center punch and just make 2 marks so I can drill my holes. Then all I need to do is set this in place with the hinges against the door and put the screws in. So as you can see, one door is installed, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and repeat this exact same process on the second door, and this cabinet will be done except for the fine tuning. Okay, with the second of the 2 doors installed, the build of this sink base is essentially complete. It's been a great pleasure of mine to do this, and again, if you followed along from the very beginning and you've watched all the videos, then you certainly earn a gold star. And because you know, it's a lot of material to cover. I do talk a lot during my videos, particularly because these are geared, as I've mentioned, to the novice cabinet maker or the person who's never built cabinets in their kitchen and they want to try this. I highly encourage it. It's a learning experience for sure. It's not going to be easy, but I think you can. I think it's totally doable, and I think you can do it. So I encourage you to try. I do plan on posting one more video with respect to the kitchen series, and that is to cover the cost of the cabinets. It's not a lot of money compared, I think, to what you can always find cheaper cabinets. You can go to an IKEA and find really, really cheap cabinets, but you won't be able to find cabinets that are built like this with 3/4 inch pre-finished sidewalls, 3/4 inch back, cherry face frames, cherry panel doors, raised panel doors. I don't think you're going to beat that price, or it's going to be very tough to beat the cost of the kitchen for the materials if you're going to do it yourself. So it's been a great journey. I very much appreciate it, as I've said before, and we're not going anywhere. We've got a lot of projects coming up. We're going to be doing some bookcases. We're going to be doing a fireplace mantle. I'm going to be doing a lot of trim work. A lot of you can really improve the value of your home if you just change out the trim work that's in it. So there's got a lot of projects coming up. I got a few more skill builders in mind to produce, so there's going to be a lot more material if you're interested, and we really look forward to seeing you in the future. And thank you very much for liking and subscribing and commenting and posting. That's been really, really great. So this has been Pat Keegan with the DIY Home Build channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.